What's up, vapors? Thanks for checking out Daily Vape TV. My name is Nick, and welcome to Fresh Build Week Day 2. Today we've got a flavor build for all you flavor chasers out there. If you want to try something new on your RDA and you want the maximum amount of flavor, then make sure you pay attention. Now this job is going to require a drill, so make sure you grab your tools, grab your mod, grab your wick, your addy, your wire, all that good stuff. Let's go down to the close-up view and build it up. Alright guys, so as you can see here, I have my spools of 26 and 36 gauge nichrome 80 wire. That's what we're going to be using today for this build. You can use Kanthal if you want, but again, the resistance is just going to be a little bit different. So, with that being said, I'm also using a Clapton Jig Rig V2. This is coming from Vaped3D.com. They've improved the clamp on this thing so that it locks into place so you can't get it to wiggle whatsoever here, which is great. So that's definitely an improvement over the V1. Let's go ahead and set up our Clapton jig rig and we'll spin up some Clapton wire. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do today is actually straighten out this 26 gauge. We're using about a foot of this wire here. I figure about 6 inches per coil ought to be enough. So we're just going to put that right in the chuck of the drill. And I put a little 90-degree bend on the very end of that wire so that it makes it a little bit more rigid inside the chuck of the drill so it doesn't just flop out or anything like that. And I'm just going to spin this up on normal speed for about 3 seconds. And taking it out of the chuck of the drill to get this thing set up. Usually what I do is I put it right through the top part, since we're doing a single core Clapton. Just put it right through the smallest hole and feed it through the rest of that clamp. Then you just feed it through the back port there, that little hole. Seat the jig directly over that clamp. And I usually try to set up the end of the wire first. Just the end couple of wraps, a real quick few wraps here help us get started. So we're just going to do that, just a few manual wraps around that lead, around our little 90-degree bend there. And that's going to help get some tension inside the chuck of the drill, and it's going to grab onto that outer wire no problem. So it also helps us when we go to insert the wire down into the clamp here. You want to just make sure it's facing about 90 degrees right into the clamp section there. That way it'll wrap properly. Otherwise, if you have it at an angle at all, it's going to leave a lot of space in your Clapton wire. It's not going to come out as nice. So next thing we do is put the whole thing in the chuck of our drill. Try to get it right in the center if possible. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but you know, just for cleanliness' sake, I like to get it nice in the center there. All right, so now that we have the jig all set up, we're going to spin up this drill. And there we go. We have a foot of Clapton wire. That was pretty easy, I think you'll agree. So, next thing I do, I cut off the part where we just first started the Claptoning here. There you go. There's your perfect Clapton wire. Now I'm just going to reposition the camera and we'll get to wrapping some coils. So here is the Clapton wire that we just made with the Clapton Jig Rig V2. Of course, Claptoning by hand is going to be a lot more difficult. As you saw there, I just did it with one hand and it was super easy. Honestly, a $25 device that's going to save me a lot of time is definitely worth it for me. But I guess I'll leave that decision up to you guys. Now we're going to just build these coils real quick. So first thing we're going to do is find the center of this wire just by bending it in half. And just going to neaten that up real quick and snipping where you feel like halfway is right about there. That's good. All right. Next, we got to just grab our jig. Yes, I'll be building with a jig today, but again, if you have a drill bit or something hanging around that's this size, then feel free to use that as well. Honestly, there's no rules when it comes to building. That's the best part about building, in my opinion. So feel free to just build along with me however you like. Real quick, I'm just going to spin up 2 of these coils. So just install one through there, through the little top of the bit. And we're doing 6 wraps today. And with Clapton wire, I like to give it like a good half a wrap extra pretty much, because this stuff is very springy. So I give it a nice half a wrap tension on there, and then it springs kind of back right towards me, as you just saw there. So we're taking that off real quick, straightening out the first lead. And we have our first Clapton coil. That was pretty easy. And the second one I'm just going to spin up off camera, but as you see, I'm not using the big part of the jig, the actual spinner part of the jig, just because sometimes that can accidentally declapton the wire or something like that. So that's why I don't tend to use the full jig on this style of building. Now, since 26 gauge and 36 gauge Claptons really aren't the lowest resistance coils in the world, I'm actually going to parallel it now with another piece of 26 gauge. So the way I'd like to do that is just put it in the little hole right there on the bit. And I just like to start wrapping around the first coil like that, and then make sure you go on the inside of the lead. And then what you're going to do is basically force your way in between each wrap of wire here. So just make sure it goes in correctly. There we go. Just get in between those leads every time you go around and hold it nice and tight. And you can do this with any gauge wire. You can do this with 24 if you want to. You could do this with 22 if you want to. It's just really up to you. That's the beauty of building. Like I said, no rules. So as you can see there, we have our completed paralleled coil like so. And usually what I like to do is have the coil start on the outside. So I actually missed a wrap on there, but never fear, you can always just go like that one time around and just add one more wrap on this end. And just like that, we have a framed up nice little parallel coil. Let's go ahead and do that again, then we'll install them. Alright, so we brought our mod and Addy in now. We have our 2-post Velocity V2 on top of the Council of Vapor Tempest. That's what I'm using. But again, this works in pretty much any atomizer out there. But let's just go ahead and push on real quick. Now it looks like a wiry mess right now, and some people would probably trim up their leads before they go to install these coils, but me, I'll just do it without. I think I can manage it. You know, I say that as I screw it up, of course. I think I got it. There we go. All right, looks like I got it. So there we go. We got one coil installed now. Now, what I like to do normally is just pull that wire real close to the terminal there. That's going to make it so that it seats really nice, and that way you can stretch out that wire when you got everything all nice and snugged up in there, and it makes your coils nice and tight against those posts, and make sure you have plenty of room for cap clearance. So now I'm just going to go take my bit out and tighten down those leads. Next step is clipping off the excess wire. I usually keep a finger on the wire so it doesn't fly off, just like that. So it makes everything a little bit neater, and you want to get those right up against the posts there. You want to trim them right up there. That way it stays nice and clean for when you install your second coil, which is what we're going to do right now. Alright, the tricky part once again is getting those negative leads cut without cutting the rest of that coil there. So just very, very slyly, I suppose, you go in, just try to trim out as much as you can here without clipping those leads off the other coil. And this is going to take some practice, but you know what? Once you get it down, it's just like riding a bike. Bang, just like that. So next step, reinsert your bit back through there. Lift up on your coils and push out a little bit on your terminals there, so it brings them up and straightens them out. And you want to look for everything to be nice and neat and even every which way you look at it. That way you're going to make sure it fires up nice and evenly. Alright, after a little bit of neatening up, I think we're ready for some heat on this thing. Let's go ahead and fire it up at 50 watts. And at first you just want to pulse fire it just a little bit, just to get those coils glowing a little. And then just do your standard pinch. These coils are going to be a little bit more springy because of that Clapton wire. But after a little bit of tuning, I think we'll get them firing up real nice there. And as you can see already, they're firing up pretty nice. So since this is all nichrome, it's going to get a nice color to it after a few fires here. That 26 gauge really is just for heat. You want that initial heat. That's why you got to put that parallel wire in there. A few more pulses at the low wattage here, and I think we'll be ready for the high wattage. Alright, I just went ahead and doubled the wattage. Now we're at 100 watts, so let's go ahead and fire this baby up. So there you go. As you can see, the ramp time is dramatically decreased, which is exactly what I was looking for out of this. Now you can really just go ahead and let the coils cool off a little bit if it's firing up like you like it, and we'll go ahead and wick it. So we have our Kogen Do Japanese cotton ready to go. I'm just going to prepare my little strips. I like ripping off the hard edges because I feel like it just kind of wicks a little bit nicer. I also put the flat edge towards the outside of the coil. I don't know why I started doing that, to be honest with you, but it's been working for me pretty good, so it just kind of keeps the cotton all nice and neat when you're actually wicking these things up. So we're using about half a sheet per coil here today. We're going to start off with that. If we need less, then we'll just take a little bit of a layer off, and we'll see where we're at. So first attempt there, actually, I think we're good right where we're at. That's perfect. So just going to go ahead and leave that right about there. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and wick this second coil. And this one's a little bit thicker, so you might have to take a thin layer off, just like that. Just brush over it once, and I think you'll be able to get off that excess there. Usually it manages to work itself out. And it's still a little bit tight, so just going to brush off one extra little layer there. And there we go. That's about the right tightness. I like it. Just tight enough so where you feel like you're almost going to move that coil if you go any tighter. And you just want to take your scissors, grab both pieces at the same time, and cut it right about the edge of the deck. So right about there. You really don't need a whole lot of cotton in these RDAs. It wicks pretty good, so I feel like it's going to hold a lot of juice right there in those coils. So brushing it up once again with our tweezers, just to expand those ends real quick and get rid of any loose fibers by combing it like that. Same thing on this side. Comb it through. It's interesting the little tips you pick up along the way. Just different people say different things, and eventually you create your own style with wicking and building and all that stuff. But everyone's going to be different. Each of you are like a little snowflake. So alright, we're going to give it a little bit of a haircut here. Chop those ends off. No more frizz. Alright, we're looking good. Let's juice this baby up. Alright, so I just did my last minute little touch-ups on the cotton. I like to just kind of put my tweezers together like that and just poke a little air gap through the bottom here just to make sure air can get all the way through this RDA. That way it keeps the coils nice and cool. So let's go ahead, before we put the cap on, let's just take a look at some vapor production. There we go, that's 100 watts. Let's bump it up to 120. Looking good. Let's go back to the main screen and have a chat about it. Oh yeah, did I mention this thing chucks clouds as well? Not only do I get excellent flavor off of this build, but I also get great cloud production. This build, the final resistance came out to 0.17 ohms. I'm rocking it right now at 120 watts on this Council of Vapor Tempest 200 watt mod, and it is absolutely ripping. But not only do I get that cloud, but I also get maximum flavor production. This thing is a flavor monster. I absolutely love the flavor I get out of it. It's very dense, it's warm. I closed off the top air holes on this Velocity V2, and I've got the bottom air holes wide open. That way it's kind of like drawing the air up towards the coils because they are seated a little bit above the airflow holes. Obviously, it's going to be different if you don't own a Velocity or something similar to it, so you just kind of have to adjust it to suit whatever you're building on. But the way I have it set up right now, this thing is absolutely spot on as far as the flavor is concerned. Right now I'm vaping this Island Time Vapors Blue Myth. It's a blue raspberry slushy kind of flavor, and it is absolutely top notch. I am getting the bright notes, I'm getting the high, medium, and low. Just everything about this build screams flavor. Now, the parallel wire is meant for the faster ramp up time and the lower resistance, as well as some of the cloud production, but the Clapton wire is really what sets this build apart from other builds like it. That's where you're going to trap that juice in, and it just absorbs just right and kind of wicks a little bit better than standard round wire, and it just produces so much better flavor in my opinion. So that about does it for today's video, guys. Make sure you stick around for day 3 where we're going to be doing the first of 2 tank builds. Now leave me comments in the box below of what you think of this build, whether or not you want to try it out for yourself, or if you do try it, make sure you leave me comments on how you like it. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like this. Of course, check out the advocacy links in the description below. I have them there for you so you can fight for your right to vape. Of course, check me out on all my different social medias. I have Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you follow me on there, like my page on Facebook, check out my Snapchat, and if you want to give me a couple of bucks on Patreon, that would be awesome as well. So thank you guys all for joining me, and as always, vape on!